Ever noticed that you get angry the moment you feel tired? Say you have been working non-stop and instead of slowing down to take a break, you just use your willpower and keep on pushing forward. But no matter how successful you are or how many tasks you complete, you feel a certain sadness deep inside. And you feel bad about yourself for being tired. And there's a reason why. You're a human, you're not a robot. But we live in this hustle culture of overachievement that have us overstretched and burnout, really living barely on our reserves and hemorrhaging our life force towards these external ideals, completely disconnecting ourselves from our basic human physiological needs, and furthermore, taking a toll in the satisfaction in our private life. This looks like having the libido down the floor, the bed turned off, and no no much desire for anything other than the pile of infinite tasks to finally be over one day. Stay tuned because in this episode, I'm gonna share with you two powerful tools from my Sensual Rest system. The first is a mindset shift quick fix tool that will help you rest without feeling guilty. It will support you on reclaiming your own authority and authorizing yourself to rest for the good of your health and well being. And the second tool is a somatic movement quick fix tool that will help you get into the parasympathetic dominance of the nervous system so you can finally rest and digest. This is what you experience as ah, finally being able to let go and soak and luxuriate languorously in the sensuous pleasure of doing nothing. I am Candia Raquel, and you are at the Sensual Sessions Podcast, the place to explore sensing pleasure through your senses and moving in a way that is free from inhibition and full of self expression. So, I'm gonna share with you my personal story on how this brand around embodying sensuality came to being. So, I am a workaholic par excellence. I have a background in science, a background as a professional dancer, a master teacher in Pilates. I provided Pilates teacher trainings for numerous students that later on put their own studios. For I did that for over a decade, and like my lab was super saturated. And the paradox is that even though my whole scope of study was and is around the body, health, and bodily awareness, I was utterly disconnected from my body and from my sensation. And I was self exploiting myself as a workhorse. And all of this because of my upbringing, in this background of being detached as a scientist and detached from yourself. And in dance, I was indoctrinated to detach from the pain in the body. Like, I danced on pointed shoes, ballet, with my toe bleeding after losing a toenail. And like, I have gotten cortisone injections in my groins in order to be more flexible. And stories like this you hear among Olympic gymnasts and football players and high level athletes of every kind. So part of the training is this disassociation from the experience of the body in order to minimize pain and keep going, pretty much in a military martial spirit, which is very useful when you're dealing with a survival situation. But this is not a functional modus operandi as your lifestyle. And even though this mindset of like stoic self-sacrifice is highly applauded in our culture and is like uh, portrayed to an extreme in these kinds of jobs, it's still how we as a culture, as a society in this moment in time, run our lives, especially women. Like, we've been raised to be the primal caregivers. And at the moment in time, it's necessary, like the first month of a newborn, it's like a matter of keeping the baby alive to neglect on your sleep, on your eating, and whatever. But that's just like a short moment in time. And the terrible thing is that we women have adopted that as our standard and our baseline requirement for living, neglecting altogether even our identity as a woman that desires, that delights, that savors, that is connected to pleasure. All of that is put aside in order to serve the baby. And if you don't have a baby, well, then it's worse because it's serving like the husband or the boss or the colleagues or the aging parents or whatever. So I giving myself as an example in the aim that you can see this pattern of behavior mirrored, and that you understand that is just that, a pattern of behavior that is part of our cultural indoctrination that we had to comply with in order to fit in. But now the good news is that we are grown-ups and we can reclaim our sovereignty of making our own decisions, which has to do with putting ourselves first, wearing the oxygen mask, and understanding that the best leadership is through the example. And a great service that you can do for your beloveds is to take care of yourself so you don't become a burden. And how you do that? By listening to yourself, by fine tuning to pleasure, which was a lesson that really changed my life. So I was totally drained after teaching a marathon of Pilates module, about 10 hours of teaching in a row in a day, and that had been for a week. And I was so tired, and instead of taking a break after teaching and just like laying in the private office in my studio to recalibrate, I said like, no, I have to keep on going, and I have the willpower to go on and go to a supermarket. And then like I was so tired that I missed a step and fell from the stairs. And as I was falling, I heard a muscle breaking and detaching from my spine. It hurt, it sounded like a celery stick breaking. And I was like, okay, this is bad. As an anatomist, I knew it was really bad. And the diagnosis was a terrible muscular ablation, a fracture of a muscle, of a spinal muscle named the psoas, which is also a little bit allegedly, but also the muscle responsible of whole body orgasms, of transmitting the vibration of the orgasmic reflex all along the body. So not only that injury complicated pleasure altogether for me, but it also had me confined on a chair. And the thing was that I couldn't move without pain. And I was like super stubborn on moving ahead, as I always did in my life, by sheer willpower and also self sacrifice, but determination. It was like, I can do it, a can do attitude. And every time I tried to get up from the chair, pain would just set me back down, like slap, like paralyzing pain, like. And then I got it, like, okay, I cannot move, regardless of how much I want to, and regardless how much willpower and strength and determination put into it. I I hit the proverbial wall right then and there. I had a blow of reality. It was an utter humbling experience. Like, yeah, you could do all of that beyond your limits when you didn't have an injury, but now that you have an injury, now that life has given you the lesson that not everything is possible, and that no, you cannot do everything. A lot of things, yes, but not everything. It was a terrible blow in every way. And in that, like, kind of sorrow, pitiful state of also losing a part of my identity, like, well, then who am I now? And I felt like a like a wounded animal in a cave, and somehow contorted my way to a position and an angle where pain was less. So instead of charging against pain and difficulty and moving ahead and being very willful, I went the other way around. I was like, okay, instead of moving towards pain, I'm gonna move away from pain. And almost as if the body was a territory and that you are exploring new trails in this territory through your movement, I began to find places where that were less painful, and then even places that were completely pain free. We're like, okay, I am finding an oasis inside of me in this like millimeter angle of position where I can breathe without pain. It's almost like what we all do when we have a really bad neck and shoulder cramp because you slept on a weird position, or the position that you were in the plane, in the flight, was kind of crooked, and then like you cannot move the neck, and if you move a millimeter it's like, oh, no, 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 you go back. Or when you're having menstrual cramps, that also you like contort and like, okay, now in this position I can exist. That was my discovery. And then I was like, okay, then I'm gonna stay here. And little by little, very carefully and especially very respectfully with pain and with and very caring of my body, finally, I began to find movements and positions in my body and experiences within a very small range of movement that were not only pain free, but they were pleasurable. And as I continue exploring these movements that tasted good, that sensed pleasurably, that I, I discovered sensuality. I, I knew sensuality accidentally, but now I was like, okay, this is it. This is experiencing pleasure through the sensation in my body. And this feels good. This feels like life affirming. This feels health supporting. And I continue moving that way. And that's the way that I manage to stand up from a chair, that I manage to walk again, that I manage to dance again, and that I manage to get my life back by listening to my body, letting my body have the last word, in the sense that pain means stop, but pleasure means go. So pleasure became the compass that guided me through this territory of the flesh and movement. And furthermore, the compass that led me and keeps on leading me through life. I notice how am I doing, and again, I am very almost obedient to the information of my body, because the body never lies, like Martha Graham says. Your body will always tell you the truth. And this was fundamental for dismantling this hustle culture limiting belief that claims that if there's no pain, there's no gain, which is an utter lie that promotes self destruction and self abandonment. While the opposite is truth. True. No pain means all gain. And furthermore, pleasure is the way, pleasure is the way of life. Because if you pay attention, we tend to only pay attention to our body in this culture when we are in pain, in the emergency room, when things like get to another level of urgency. But we tend to disregard pleasure and disregard health and disregard life and the gift that we have here now, and the acknowledgement of all the prayers that have been answered in our lives and all the blessings that we have just for having this being this glorious sentient body with kidneys filtering water, with a heart pumping non-stop no matter what. Your heart never stops, your brain processing so much information and complexity. We take pleasure for granted, but if you pay attention, pleasure is how health feels like. And you notice that, especially when you find relief from pain, or even say you have been driving for a while and there's no bathroom near anywhere, and when you finally arrive home and you sit and take a pee, that one of those like 3 minute eternal pee that it's like, relief. That's pleasure. It's a physiological response. Ah, see, pleasure, it's not a concept, it's not an emotion. Pleasure is a sensation, the same as pain. Pleasure only happens in the present moment, the same as pain. Pleasure is a straight communication from your body that you are doing things right. And what happens if you don't feel pleasure, neither pain? Probably you're just tired, which exacerbates this numbness or anhedonia, the inability to sense pleasure. And there's a term for that in somatic movement. And this term was coined by Thomas Hanna, who also invented the word somatics. Thomas Hanna said that this numbness is a sensory motor amnesia, meaning it's a forgetting how to feel and how to move, which is a baseline illness in this moment in culture, in in our day and era. So what it means is that you need to rest. If you don't feel anything, if you're numb, it means that probably you're just like running on survival mode, on autopilot, using the reserves of your adrenals and your chi, your vital force, to keep on going. But the further you go without replenishing your vitality, the greater the risk of unwanted things happening, like it was my experience. So the takeaway from this experience is to listen to your body and always let your body have the last word, and especially attuning to pleasure and attuning to pain, and using pleasure as your compass. Like, okay, I'm feeling less pleasure now, so I'm gonna do a quick audit of what am I doing. Am I well rested? Do I need to take a break? Do I need to eat? Am I well hydrated? Do I need to put boundaries around? Okay, and you do some of that, and then you reassess, like, how much pleasure am I experiencing now? Okay, it feels good. I feel healthy. I feel more bubbly, sparkly, and I feel that I am not doing things out of obligation, but out of out of commitment, which is a very different stance, out of desire, out of decision. So I'm going to share with you the couple tools from my Sensual Rest system so you can, in a very easy way, shift your your state and feel good about pausing and doing nothing. Pausing the busy bandwagon, and then when you made the pause, really being able to physically let go and embody sensual pleasure through rest. So the mindset shift is this idea of being a cave woman and remembering that most of the time in the history of our human species, we've been hunter gatherers. The civilization, thanks to agriculture and then private property and all that, is quite recent. It's almost like if you had a clock or a year, and maybe 11 months and a half we were hunter gatherers, and only for the last 4 weeks, which are these, like we are like kind of more civilized. So our bodies are, evolutionarily speaking, adapted to move and live following the rhythms of nature, as one with nature. So we have our circadian rhythm, which has a great impact in our hormone production and in our energy levels. So the invitation is to do little tweaks in your everyday life so you embody a little bit more the lifestyle of a cave woman, following the rhythms of the light of the sun and the rhythms of the moon and the night. Meaning, do the same as birds, like get up and rise with the sun and go to sleep on sunset. And just like that, give it a try, and you may think that it's slacker, I don't know, even lazy. It's okay. Think whatever you want to think on autopilot, but do the reframe and see if you can take it more as loftiness. And instead of spending 1 hour watching Netflix and another hour on social media, see if you can like just watch the clouds out from your window or sense the fabrics of the sheets in your bed. Really simple things align with this circadian rhythm. And also see if you can fake the sunset, because we have electricity, but perhaps you could dim your lights. Perhaps around 8 p.m. you could just, instead of having the bright light in the roof and the lamps, you could light a candle, like thinking that between sunset and the pitch dark night, what we used to do as cave women was to gather around the fire. So light a candle in that moment of transition and notice how you get a different, more embodied, more biologically attuned rhythm. And little by little, you will see that the rest time improves, and therefore your energy levels and your efficiency improves along your vitality. And the sensuality practice is called the 5 minutes of constructive rest. Constructive rest is a highly favorite position in the somatic movement world. It's about laying on your back with legs bent, with hips flexed, knees bent pointing to the ceiling, and feet standing, shoulder width apart, and just laying there. Perhaps placing one or two books under your head to get it leveled and ease breathing, but that's pretty much it. And the magic in this position is that it adjusts the angle of the hip joint. So the psoas muscle, the one that I injured, is on a no supported to be on a neutral tone, meaning it's not overstretched, it's not too short, but it's on a range where it's easier for the psoas to respond to the gravity field, fall down, and naturally rearrange its fibers and its tone. We're gonna do a modified version here, sitting, so you know more or less what to do when you are in constructive rest position. So the very first thing is to set your clock for 5 minutes, and then you're just gonna do a body scan, which is about sensing the differences in your body parts without changing them. So imagine that your body is covered in ink. Let's say I have a fountain pen, a Mont Blanc, and it has a green ink. So let's imagine that we are covered in this beautiful emerald green ink. And notice how your feet are standing. And they would be leaving a you would be leaving a footprint in the floor. So notice which foot is closer to your midline and which feet is more open to the side. Now, which foot is a little bit more close to the base of the chair or the legs of the chair, and which one is a little bit more forward. And now notice, without changing anything, remember, how are your toes standing? Are all of your 10 toes relaxed in contact with the floor, leaving a beautiful toe print, color green? Or is there any toe that is floating? And let it be, and get curious of the print that you leave in the floor. Now let's do that with the thighs and buttocks, and just notice which side has more weight poured in, which might create an imaginary imprint that is kind of thicker, wider. Now notice your back against the backrest of the chair. What is the shape that you're leaving? Is it the same width, the same height? And just notice, notice, notice. This is what listening the body is about. You listen what your body is telling you, and you don't interrupt it or force it to be different. You let it be, and you learn from it, and you act accordingly. Okay, now let's wrap all that, imagining all together your body print in the floor and in the chair. If you were to stand up, how would that look like? And it's like, see if you can be curious and interested rather than judgmental and just say like, oh wow, had, had no idea that all day long I have been sitting with this setup. Okay, and now what's most importantly, notice what's the tone of your bodily sensations. Are you tense or relaxed? Now notice the tone of your thoughts and your emotions. Perhaps you are more calm, and perhaps you're not thinking much, and perhaps you are full on here now in the present. So, this is our natural state. Probably by now, with these two sensual rest tools, you already shifted your nervous system to the parasympathetic dominance, meaning you might have been early on in survival mode and now you shifted to the side of rest and digest, which is also a state more available for delight. Perhaps you're feeling your vitality to circulate more freely. Perhaps you feel your hands getting warmer, your cheeks getting a little bit blushed, your gaze becoming brighter, your eyes more lubricated. So, this is libido, the libido, the vital force, the drive, also the sexual potency that we oftentimes express not only on intimacy with the beloved, but as creativity, as the drive to do your thing, but again, not out of obligation, but out of commitment to give shape materially in the reality of this potency that is running through you. And this is exactly what we practice inside sensual rest. So, see, you don't need to use your willpower in life. That it's only an emergency resource when there's nothing left. But the natural way is to do things from this state of flow, which is your life force, your libido is running through you, you're overflowing, and you give expression to that overflow in the external world. And it's as easy as letting your body have the last word and is using pleasure as your compass, and of course, having some practical mindset shift tools and somatic movement tools so you can get back on track anytime you need on your everyday life. So, if you're ready to learn more, I have two invitations for you. The first one is to join Sensual Rest, which is my 4 week online live program to overcome burnout and restore the vitality of your libido through somatic movement. Doors are open, but they close next week. So if you're ready to enroll, please go to my website, which is my name, candiaraquel.com/sensual-rest, which is www.candiaraquel.com/sensual sensual-rest. candiaraquel.com/sensual-rest. And the second invitation is for you to jump into the free class that I'm teaching. So this is a 2-hour workshop where you learn the 5 mistakes that block pleasure and keep you burnout. And you will also learn 5 somatic movement tools to fix them and go from drained to passionately alive. Plus, you remember the Psoas muscle of whole body orgasms, also the muscle of the survival response. Well, you will also learn the secret muscle technique to embody deep sensuality. So, to save your spot, go to my website again, candiaraquel.com slash, what's the name? I'm gonna share with you on the description of this episode the URL. I believe it's Sensual Rest webinar reservation with hyphens within. So I really hope to see you there because there's no reason for living a half-lived life when you have that paradise of territory that is your body, your flesh. But fatigue is like a wall that walls you off from life force, from desire. And it's important to dismantle this walling off, overcome fatigue, so you get back into running with a zest for life. So remember always to take the time to rest so you can sense your fire and share the flame.